like I said, we're at the end of chapter 4 here. The bulk of the text is just step-by-step modeling the bookcase and the clock. But we're going to go over a few key points that the textbook has. So let's start with a new tool. So you're going to learn two types of arrays this week. One is a linear array and one is a radial array. An array just means copying in a sequence. So linear array then is going to be you're producing equally spaced copies in a straight line, and then radial array will be equally spaced copies around an angle. So we'll start with the linear array. Get rid of this person. Okay, so there are two types of ways that you can do an array. You can either specify the starting point and the ending point, and then have copies fill that space between the two endpoints, or you can start with your original object, make a second copy that's whatever space away you want it, and then you can just keep going with equally spaced copies however long you want. So I'll show you both. So we'll start with being between kind of two fixed points. And this is the one that we're going to use today in the assignment, but I'm going to show you both. So if you're between two endpoints, first you need an object that you're going to copy. So I'll just make a good old cube here. So this is my cube, and I want to create a bunch of copies. Let's say I know what the end point is going to be. So let's say that my end will be maybe 5 feet away. So I'm going to copy this one 5 feet away. So I hit M for move, click Control for copy, and then I'm going to type 5, put enter. Oh, that's really far. All right, there's my 5 feet away. And then immediately before I do anything else, I'm going to type a backslash. So that's the one that shares with the question mark on your keyboard. Type backslash and then the total number of copies that you want. This is the number of copies, you're not including the original in it. So if I were to type backslash 5, enter, I now have my original copy, the last copy that was 5 feet away, and then I have 4 equally spaced objects in between. So 5 total copies. Let's do that one more time. Start with my object. Grabbing all of my object. M for move. Control for copy. Specify the farthest point away. I'm going to do 5 feet again. So 5 foot, enter. And then immediately type backslash 5, enter. And that'll give me those equally spaced copies. The other way to do it is if I have a very specific distance that I want between the first and second object, and then I just want to be able to keep on copying however many, so on and so forth. So the first one, I specify the starting and end point. This next one, I'm going to specify the starting and the second point. So I'm going to just copy this over here. So this will be my first object. And this time, let's say that I want each copy to be 5 foot apart. That's going to be really big if I do 5 foot. I want each copy to be 1 foot apart this time. So I will hit M for move, Control for copy, and then I'm going to specify where this one goes. So I'll type 1 foot, enter, and so now that one's 1 foot away from my original. And then to add more copies past that second one, I'm going to type X followed by the total number of copies. So X, 5, enter. And that gave me 4 additional ones, 5 total copies. So whatever number you type in does not include this original one, it's just the number of copies that follow. We'll do that one more time. Grab this object again. We'll do it this time. Let's say I want them 6 inches apart. And I want 10 of them this time. So I've got my object here. M for move. Control for copy. This time I'm just doing 6 inches, so I'll type 6, enter. And then immediately the total number of copies that I want, so I want 10 copies, so I'm typing X, 10, enter. And now I have 10 total copies, each spaced 6 inches apart from each other. Make sense? Okay. Similarly, we can do this around an angle. Get rid of all this. And I'll start again in the cube here. So let's say I want to have these copies not in a straight line this time, but I want them to kind of go around a curve. So I'm going to do just a full circle here. Hi, Grace. So with this one, we're going to have to use the rotate tool. And that is Q on your keyboard. So I've got the object selected here, and I'm going to hit Control to activate that copy key. And then we'll choose a center point that we're going to rotate around. So I might want to have a specific point in mind, but just for this quick demonstration, let's say that I'm going to copy from this point here. Start to specify that endpoint here. And then as I start to bring this copy around, you'll hit, again, the backslash. So we'll do backslash, and let's say that I want 5 copies in a full circle. So let's see here. First, we need to do, we need to do the angle first. So if I'm doing a full circle, that's 360 degrees. So I'm going to type 360, enter. That didn't work. Maybe it did, hold on. And then you should type in backslash and the total number that you want. So I'll type backslash 5, enter. There we go, that did work. So what it did was it gave me copies around whatever center point I had specified. The important thing to note here is that it's a little bit different from the linear array. Whenever I typed backslash 5, it gave me 5 copies. Whenever I use the radial array, it gives me 5 total objects. I don't really know why they did it differently, kind of irritating, but that's the way it is. Let's do it again, and this time I'm going to show you where my center point is. So I'll do another rectangle, cube, and let's say I'm going to move it just a foot that way. Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? That's a foot. I'm zooming way far in. We're not doing a foot. We're going to do more like 2 inches. Alright, my center point is going to be the origin. And let's say I'm only going to do a half circle this time just so you can see how that works. So, I've got my object selected. I'm typing Q to bring the rotate tool up, specify the center point of where I want to rotate around, and then specify my end point here. We're going to type the angle first, so this time I'm going to do a half circle, so that should just be 180. So I'll type 180, enter. I don't really know why everything disappears, but it's fine, just keep going. And then let's do 6 copies this time. I'll do \6, enter. Oh, I forgot control. Okay, all right, back up. We're back at the beginning. Object is selected. Q for rotate. Control for copy. That's where I messed up. I didn't hit the control key. Specify your center point, end point. 180, enter. \6, enter. And now I've got just that half circle, that 180 degrees. And I have, do I have 7 total this time? Friends, I don't know what's happening. Let's try again. You know what I wonder? I wonder if when we went in a circle, if it copied the one in place. Let's try again. There's the object. Q for rotate, control for copy, grab your center point, grab your end point. I'm going to do 360 again. Enter. And we'll do 5, enter. I didn't do the \. This is going terribly. That's fine. \60, enter, \5, enter. I'm wondering if I've got 2. No? Well, that's just a mystery why this one gave me 5 total, the other one gave me 7 total. Maybe we'll figure it out when we do the clock later. But it just you get the point. Okay, we'll be able to revisit that whenever we do our bookcase and our clock. So we'll get back to it. So just a couple of things about tools that we've already visited once before. We're going to be using the ARC tool today. So just some kind of tips about that. Your arc and your circle, anything that has a curve to it, it's actually made up of straight lines that just kind of look like a curve from far away. So if I zoom into this, you can see that it's just a bunch of straight lines that are all joined together to form that curve. The default is to have 12 lines. But you can change that if you wanted to. So whenever I activate the ARC tool, I'm putting A for ARC. You can see down in your little box down here, it says 12. That's telling you that it'll be 12 sides to that arc. If I just immediately type a different number of sides before I even start my arc, then it'll change the number of lines that's making up that arc. So if I wanted it to be 24, I just type 24 and hit enter. And then my next arc that I have should be made up of, of course you're going to make me a liar, 24, enter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This is the worst live demo I've ever done. I'm very sorry, guys. This is just not working out for me today.
What's my least favorite tool in CAD?
What's up?
The arc. Doing the arc tool on CAD.
Oh, it's also weird.
weird.
I wonder if it's also just this computer, because it's being a little buggy today. It's like not moving as fast as I am. Though it's not really important, but it should work. The circle is supposed to do the same thing. Let's see if the circle wants to work for us. So with the circle down here on the sides, you see that its default is 24. I should be able to change that. So if I type this time, let's do 16. That could be 16. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, that one's 16. And then, now it should, each time you pull up the circle tool again, it'll stay at whatever number of sides you typed in. So it should stay at 16. So if I wanted to turn it back to 24, I just need to type 24, enter. Come back to here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, that one's got 24 this time. You can also even turn the circle tool into a rectangle just by changing the number of sides. That's all that these tools are doing, is just changing the number of sides that you're getting. So even with my circle tool here, I could type in 4, enter, and now I've got a rectangle. Or I could type in 3, enter, and now I've got a triangle. So if you ever find yourself that your circle tool does not look like a circle, just type 24, enter. Oops, not that big. 24, enter, and it'll bring you back to that default circle. And then we talked last week that you can draw shapes and then type in the specific number that you want and it'll auto resize. The circle does the same thing. So if I just drew a circle, that's really big. So right now that one's radius is like 56 feet. If I click to finish that one and then I immediately type 25, it'll auto resize to have that 25-foot radius instead of the 56. And then even further, you might notice that we don't have an oval tool or an ellipse tool. The way you just really are able to get around that is you make a circle and then you use the scale tool and start to move the grips to create that shape that you want. And remember, you can hit Control so that it resizes about the center, scales about the center. So that's just how you get an oval or an oblong shape. Alright, even though those last few things went terribly, do we have questions about how they're supposed to function? Okay. Let's move on to the rotate tool. Okay, so we know how to use the rotate tool, but just a couple things that might help you out. Let me draw Q here real quick. So if I grab the rotate tool, and again that's Q on your keyboard, you might notice that whenever you start to hover over objects, it's automatically kind of flipping around to be parallel with the axis that your cursor is on. Sometimes that'll get really annoying. If you want a certain axis and you're just not able to find it, what you can do is you can toggle through the different axes using the arrow keys on your keyboard. So if I use the left arrow, that's going to give me the green axis. If I type the right arrow, that's going to give me the red. And then, let's say if I were on the red here, if I type the up arrow, that's going to give me the blue axis. So you can always find the axis that you want by just going through those 3 different arrow keys. And then once you find the axis that you want, you can press and hold the shift key, and that'll kind of lock it into place, so then it's not going to keep flipping around on you as you move around. So if I put it back to my blue axis, press and hold shift, it won't change as I'm moving around on this cube. So those will just be helpful for you as you keep on modeling, because the rotate tool likes to flip around and do all this fancy stuff. Okay, and then the last thing that we're going to talk about, we are going to be introduced to materials in this exercise. Nothing fancy, but it will be brought up. So to get to your materials, it'll be here in your default tray if you've got that pulled up. If you don't have that pulled up, remember it's under Window, Default Tray, and then just show the tray here. However, if your default tray wasn't there, if you just type B on your keyboard, that brings up, it turns your cursor into a paint bucket, and it'll also bring up that materials panel for you. So you can either type B to bring paint bucket, or you can just navigate to the materials in your default tray. And then just kind of a quick intro, we're not going to get too much into it, but SketchUp has a lot of default materials, and they are categorized in these different folders. So if I use my drop-down menu here, I can find different folders of material types that SketchUp has. I'll just go to this main materials page so you can see the different folders. And then, maybe I'm looking for some grass. I would just kind of look through here. Oh, landscaping, fencing, vegetation. That sounds like it would be some grass. Click on that one and it brings up all these different materials that we might have. And then as soon as you click on one of these materials, your cursor will turn into that paint bucket. And then you just click on the different surfaces to apply that material. Pretty easy. And you can always use this drop down. If you scroll all the way to the top, it says In Model. If you click on that one, it'll show you all the different materials that are currently in your model. So you can see the one that I just added, those pavers is in here. And then I think these are all related to the different people that show up whenever you start at SketchUp. So Heather must have been the lady that was in my template today, so this is what Heather was wearing. In case you were curious what she's wearing. Okay, that's about all the intro to materials that we're going to get to, because that'll be sufficient for our assignment today.